Make sure that we're going. And very thankful that everybody's here to the October meeting of the Dallas After Effects user group. I may not have changed the name over here in YouTube. I'll change that now. We're doing depth maps, and we're doing, I'll even switch over here. We're doing depth maps and we're doing dynamic animation. So what I mean by dynamic animation is writing expressions to have After Effects do something for you that you don't have to keyframe. Okay, we'll get into a little bit more of what that looks like in a minute. Also, we have the Dallas After Effects user group website. So we'll jump over here to this, and I'll just say, love for you to join the group if you're new watching the video. We post loads of different things in here, from reels to free stuff to people's, did I say reels? Reel, okay. To experiments and all kinds of things. This is how you find out when and where our events are. If you're going to come to an event, we'd love for you to join us for dinner as well. We meet at 6 and have a great time hanging out, just getting to know each other, talking to industry. So now we're going to jump over to After Effects, and I'm going to show you a little bit of an example of this depth that we're talking about now. So I have my bounding boxes up. I can either come up here to my view options and turn off my layer controls, or I can just hit Shift Command H or Shift Control H on the Windows machine, and the bounding boxes go away. So I have a little cleaner interface here. And what I'm going to do is just turn on the headstone and maybe the beam and background. So there's the ground. Just want you to be able to see that right there. And maybe the headstone. Okay, so there's a little edge over here you can see. But if we turn everything, then it's not very visible. But I just want you to see this kind of move across here like that. All right, I can even, let's open this up, and I can see my edges. Maybe do a, so there's my grass, and I can double click my mask tool to put a mask around this thing. Actually, let's do an ellipse. So I'll double click and just adjust this guy down, because what I want to do is squeeze in, do a little feather and squeeze in the, I'll hit MM to twirl that down. I'm going to squeeze in the boundaries of this grass so you can't see the edges. And so the way we have this working, it's not a layer in 3D space. So you can see I don't have my 3D on. What I've done is a displacement map, like that. And there are a number of different, of course, applications for displacement maps. But tonight we're going to be talking about some Z space, which will involve a little bit of displacement and a little bit of the After Effects like camera and compound blur for those specific purposes. But just so you can kind of see what I'm doing here with this depth, with this kind of simulated Z depth, is using it with some keyframes on my displacement map. So I'm not doing vertical displacement, only horizontal. And as long as I don't go too far, it gives a nice impression of doing just a kind of a slow camera dolly across the ground there. Okay, does that make sense? Any questions, any concerns? I'll tell you, this is After Effects 2014, and in later versions of After Effects, you're able to use the effects from one layer, or yeah, I think even effects from one layer onto another layer just inherently in a comp, so without having to pre-compose. Mm-hmm. But for even 2014, if you use a shape layer, After Effects will render the shape layer first. So even if it's a text or a shape or a gradient, you can use that to leave it in the comp and still do your displacement with that displacement map that's actually in the comp without having to pre-compose. And something that lets me do, we'll probably, yeah, we'll look at that in just a sec. But it allows me to change my gradient kind of on the fly without having to open up a pre-comp.
So what you're doing is faking the parallax then?
Faking the parallax. Mm-hmm. So I'm using simulated depth map to bring that to a displacement map and simulate the parallax. And you see the dark is what's furthest away and the brightness what's closest. And anything that's 50% gray is basically just going to stay stay locked in.
Why is this better than just creating a plane in 3D space?
You know, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. It's just it's just an application. Yeah.
I didn't know if you had like. Well, I could see one advantage, and that is
the first advantage for me is that I don't have to worry about what happens with that flag and that gravestone.
Okay.
Because I know if everything is sitting at 50% where the gravestone is, it's all locked.
Ah, okay. Oh, so it creates almost like your point of
like
interest.
A pivot point.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. And then because it was designed in 2D and given to me in 2D with the so you can see it has the shadow for the gravestone already in there. Mm-hmm. And I have the background back there, then I don't have to go into 3D space and line them up and turn everything and set my camera correctly. All I do is just put my headstone. My headstone's not even in 3D. It doesn't have any effects on it or anything. The flag has a displacement map. Let's see what that looks like. Oh, it just is gray. I'm wondering if that is even in use. Yeah. So I think what I did was I figured out where the flag is in 3D space, right here, quote unquote 3D space. And I, when I created this layer, I just did an eyedropper where that value is. So I didn't have to figure out where it lived in pixel space. I just figured out where it lived in brightness.
Okay. Not your depth map.
Mm-hmm. That's clever.
I don't know about clever.
Come on, you are totally clever.
It's all me just falling backwards into stuff sometimes, and I'll help you guys understand.
That was a bit awkward.
Yes, it was awkward. All right, so let's see. Another thing here, what we're going to do is just create. What do I want to do? I don't think I want to do a fractal. I think I want to see if I have a landscape photo or maybe something from a cityscape. All right, football field. Okay, so I'm going to go here and do 1920 by 1080. Call this field and drop this in. Maybe we'll go 1280 by 720 since it's not so big.
Sounds like the plan.
That's a little better. And I'm going to pre-compose this just to make sure I have everything lined up more or less. I'm doing Shift Option Command H to make that fit. If I do G, Shift Option Command G, it fits top to bottom. If I do H, it fits horizontally. Scoot that up a little bit. And now we are 1280 by 720 there, 1280 by 720 here, and I'm going to put in my, I'll deselect because I don't want a mask. I want a shape layer. And if I hit Option, I can click on my color options up here and change from solid to gradient to none, or radial gradient. So if I double click this like that, then I have my bounding box fills the screen. I'll do Shift Command H again so we can see the bounding boxes. And if I click on my rectangle 1, my nodes come up for the gradient. Okay, these also live under here, the start point and the end point. That's where those are. Okay, so I'm going to hit 0, 0. We're lined up, and I can hold Shift, and those snap to the vertices, or sorry, to the axes. So what I want to do is a little bit of a tilt shift kind of feel on this stadium. And in order to do that, we're going to do, this is once again kind of a depth map usage. I'm going to click on my gradient and we'll just say 50% is where my white is going to be, and I'll put a black down here like this. So now I can adjust like that, and if my line here is a little tight, I can come back up here and adjust my gradient like this to kind of spread out the brightness in that center portion, so it doesn't look so much like a line on there. All right, so currently anything that is dark is going to be out of focus, and anything that's bright is going to be in focus. And the reason I want to have my shape layer, and I'll call this depth map. The reason I want to have my shape layer inside my composition is so I can just click here and change my nodes. If I put this underneath, let's see what happens. Okay, so I can still see this and change my nodes. If I have it on top and I make it, I just hit Shift Command T for opacity. I'll turn that to 0. And then if I click here, I can see my nodes. But if I turn the eyeball off, my nodes go away. All right? So the point for all that is I want to find the most efficient way to keep the nodes in, or the bounding box and the nodes in the scene, so I can adjust them without having to go out to a pre-comp.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so now we'll apply the, let's go compound blur first.
And so when you reference that layer though, with effects,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if the transparency set to 0, it's still going to honor whatever
Correct.
the value is on
Correct.
each pixel. Okay.
So now I'll change that to depth map. All right, so we said that what was dark was going to be out of focus and what was bright was going to be in focus. Well, it's not that. So I just have to invert like that. Now I can see my nodes here and adjust those like that, or even do something crazy like that. And just adjust my blur, then you get something a little more appealing. All right, so what you'll notice is with the compound blur, and I'll crank up the blur if you watch the edges here. See how the edges go dark? There's no repeat edge pixels on this compound blur. I'm not sure if there is in the latest version of After Effects. So what we do to combat that is now use the camera lens blur. Camera lens blur has repeat edge pixels down here. So I'll pick my depth map again. I'll invert the blur, and we can crank up a little bit. Like that.
That's a much more aesthetically pleasing blur.
It definitely is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It definitely is.
Slower though.
Yeah, it's slower. I agree with that. But you can see how that works there. All right, any questions so far? No? All right. So now we're going to load up a video. That video lives here. This is a video shot by the illustrious Jason Pierce. He does periodically does home sales, real estate videos.
Does he?
With
I got someone asking for that. I'll have to let
Oh, yeah?
him know.
He may or may not be out of commission right now, but he's definitely someone you want to talk to.
Yeah.
He built his own rig, which we featured at Bart Damer's location a couple years ago. The giant on the tracks and giant crane and all kinds of stuff. He also does drone footage.
We used this same footage once before to
Yeah.
practice putting in a 3D maze into a 2D comp.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first thing I'm going to start with here is just drawing out what I think a depth map would look like in this. Okay, so I'll just do solid here, and I'm going to use the same solid over and over again so I don't junk up my project, and I'll just call this island, and I'll make it 50% so I can see, and we'll just go.
I thought of you naming it Gradient.
Jeremy, I'm very glad that you like the puns.
I do.
Puns are
I'm
good.
very punny.
There's island top, and we'll do island front. Let's delete that. I'm using G, hitting G to set my mask tool. Like this. And then we'll do island side. Just hit N for mask and delete it. And like this, maybe I just need to adjust this top so it covers the whole thing. Like that. Okay. So there's the first bit. Now we're going to do a wall in the back. So we'll call this, maybe this will be counter, not to be confused with island. And the counter pretty much is on the same plane. So we'll see if I need to solve differently for that in a minute. We'll do back wall, and that's just going to be back here like that. And I'll do chalkboard. Depending on how tight you want to get with this, you might not even need all of the things. You might just need instead of setting things out for the table and the chairs and all that stuff, you might just need to get a little bit of depth back in this area and be done with it. And then we'll do a ceiling. I before E except after C. Sounding like A as a neighboring way. Weekends and holidays and all throughout May. Like that. All right. I'm actually getting to a point here. So what I am going to do is just make this 1280 by 720 so we can zoom in to it a little better. And I'm going to do Shift, Option, Command, H.
I think we missed the back wall. Did we get that?
Got it right there. Back wall is just going to, there's no mask on there.
No mask? Okay.
Okay, so we have all these different layers, and I'm going to solo them and do a gradient. So the first thing I need to do is kind of figure out where the darkest thing is in the scene as far as what's furthest away and what's the brightest thing. So the darkest thing would be off here like that, and the brightest thing would be here. So maybe I can do one. Let's do one shape layer here that has a gradient, and I'll just go there to there, and now I have a path and a gradient. So, except for, well, maybe it needs to feel a little more like that. Did that do anything? Yeah, so we'll go with that right now and see what happens. It doesn't feel like it's doing much there. Delete that. That is not feeling like it's doing what I want it to do. So I'm going to go here. Turn those guys off. And I'll just do a shape layer like that and set my gradient. I'm going to delete that. And I'll twirl this guy down to my shape right here. It's not showing me my gradient colors or my gradient handles. So I'm not sure why it's not.
I think if you
Therefore-
double click on it, it will pop up with the handles. At least it does for some other effects.
I think so.
If you open it in its own. I don't even know if you can open shape layers on their own.
There, no. All right. I don't know exactly why I can't see my handles there. Maybe it's the fact that it's a path instead of a rectangle. So I'm just going to delete it and punt over to this thing. And I'll go like this. So I just need a reference now.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so call that ref. And for my island side, I can take my reference and drag it over here like this. And I can add a generate ramp, gradient ramp, like that. I'll put my gradient there. And there. So that's roughly where the white, the bright would be. Okay, so then I just need to click where that that point of the island meets the gradient. Okay. So now I'll take my ref over here, do island front. Just going to copy my gradient, paste it there, and my ramp from over there, just to make sure. Do that. Island top, paste, and get really good range here. So I'll go from there to there. Just click like that. Okay. Counter. I think my counter is going to go. Put my gradient on there. I think it needs to go maybe from like that to there. And I'll set my far color to be, far color is going to be that. And near color is going to be, let's move this over. Maybe a little bit closer, like that. Chalkboard, No, that's pretty much just black. Not much gradient on there. So, you know, if I just paste my gradient, go like that. Ceiling, pretty much the same thing. And then this wall back here, I need to kind of match what's going on with the counter. So I'll copy what's on the counter, paste it there, and go. That's probably going to be black all the way. And this is going to be like there. Now let's see what this looks like. All right. Ceiling, maybe I need something on the ceiling. If I do something on the ceiling, this might change it for back wall. That's interesting. Okay. All right, so now, because these are not shape layers, let's make sure they're all 100%. And then I'm going to pre-compose them. Call this kitchen depth, like that. And this isn't perfect right here. Let me see what needs to happen to fix that. Maybe that needs to go there. Somebody's here. I wonder who that is. All right. So now I have kitchen depth, and I have my movie. I'm going to add that camera lens blur. We'll repeat edge pixels, and we'll pick kitchen depth, like that. If I crank up my stretch to fit, okay. So I can crank up my depth. Go full. And now, is somebody for a meeting?
Yeah.
All right. So now, what I can do is I have this blur focal distance here. And with blur focal distance, I can change where the blur focuses.
Hey,
What's up, Marcus? Grab a chair.
alright. See, I have software and hardware.
I'm going to need you to change your avatar every time you do or do not have facial hair. So I know what to expect when you show up, because I almost didn't recognize you.
That's a good point. I keep forgetting my shit.
Uh-oh. What happened? Did I do that?
You kicked the cord. I tripped over the invisible cord.
Did you do something over there, or did I do something?
Did I?
It's probably me.
I think, yeah.
Oh, I think
that's something got fixed there.
That's the chair we did it.
There we go. All right, so we had a little bit of a momentary lapse there with the HDMI for our TV. But we're back.
Is it still recording?
Still recording. Recording never changed.
Okay.
Let's go on to YouTube. Okay, so any questions, any thoughts about this?
Yeah. That's pretty cool. Okay.
So that's good for that.
You're gonna have to watch the whole thing over again.
That's good for that frame, right?
That's,
But like,
yes,
as soon as you move, it's gonna be.
correct. Correct. So what we'll do in just a moment is talk about what needs to happen.
Oh, that's cool.
Okay. Something that maybe is not correct is this little window area down here. So what we can do is go in here and make a, actually I'll start here. And I'll put in my solid. And I'll make it 50%. And I'll trace out this window.
Oh yeah, the reflection would be blurry too.
Marcus, was it?
Mm-hmm.
I'm Jeremy. Nice to meet you.
Like that. Alright. So like that. And then I'll call this window. Make it 100% and put it inside here. Maybe feather the edges a tad. And it needs to be this brightness right here. So I'll copy the gradient, paste it on there. Like that. And then I'll just pick this color here. Same. So then when I go back,
So now that we have our window of opportunity,
the window, yep. So now the window is blurry over here.
That looks surprisingly good.
It is mind-blowing for me that we can do this so easily. So there are only, what, 8 layers in here giving me the depth map. Okay. And this is only going to get easier the further we go into the more releases of After Effects, because they're actually allowing you to pull depth information from Cinema 4D files, and even in any version of After Effects that has the Maxon Cinema 4D stuff built into it, where it can actually render the Cinema 4D files in After Effects. You can extract depth information. So if you have a scene, you build it out in Cinema 4D, tell the camera where the furthest point is and where the nearest point is. It'll give you a depth map, and you can use that as your depth. So if you want to be, create geometry and do a little more accurately, you can do that. But now, because you mentioned, thanks a lot, that it's only for that one shot. Let's see what it looks like if we change for that one frame.
Yeah. So here's a question for you. Could you put a 3D track on the scene and then kind of build planes for each of the objects?
Yes.
And then use a
Yes, you
light that's kind of mounted to the camera with a fall off that starts like immediately, kind of?
Well, so
To kind of like
probably, yes. Okay, so what I'm going to do to save you guys a little bit of time, I highly recommend that you do something like this, that you have folders on your computer where you put things that you test out. And I have something here called depth, maybe? Let's see. Find it here. Don't worry. Let's sort by date. Maybe that's it. Okay, so now I have, this is my movie, and I tracked it with my camera, so you can see my tracking points. Now, if you're doing just for to make sure you're using the camera tracker well in After Effects, you'll notice that the tracker points that it automatically generates kind of come and go periodically. That's okay, but if you notice one that's kind of errant and it pops up and then goes away, you probably want to delete it. A lot of times what will happen is something will show up on a reflection in a window, or After Effects won't know how to track what's going on in a window or a reflection on a mirror. So just go in, lasso, whatever it is, and hit delete, and then After Effects will, you want to do that first. You want to get a nice clean track first, because it'll do the camera solve. And if you select a bunch of stuff and delete, create items, get your animation going, and then delete tracker items, it'll solve it differently. So you want your solution pretty much done before you do anything else. Okay. All right, so then what I did here is I created an environment map that'll come into play later. I just did some reptile on my island shot.
Trippy.
And then, let's see, I have also, I think I have another island shot with depth. Do I not? Man, I hope I do in here. Because that was kind of the whole point. There's tree 2. All right. Let me check one more thing real quick before we move forward.
Here it is.
All right, well, at any rate, since we have it tracked, we can actually build what we want to build. So I will take this here and duplicate it and call this depth map moving. That was not correct. You guys just let me do that. So this one is called Island Tree. All right. So I'll duplicate Island Tree, call this depth map moving. All right. I'm going to delete those things and that. And I still have this with my tracking points. So now I can come over and just say, select a bunch of these guys. I want to make sure it matches more or less what the angle I'm trying to get for this top. And I'll do create solid and camera. I could do 63 text layers, but probably not going to do that. So I'll just do a solid in camera. And depending on how big my tracking target is, so I can,
63 text layers.
yeah, it's based on how many of these tracking markers I selected. I don't want to do that.
Word.
All right, so let's do a little bit better. I think that is a little bit better, and I can select this thing. What's my hotkey? Anybody know the hotkey to make this bigger?
There's a hotkey to make it bigger.
Yeah. I know there is
I've been
one.
doing it wrong this whole time.
Is it brackets?
No.
Hold
I'm out of ideas.
It's a good effort. It's good solid effort.
on. 3D camera.
There is a way. Maybe. Come on. I know you can do it. Come on, man. Okay. You think you can find it?
I'm on some blender.stackexchange, which I don't know why it would be on there, but somebody's asking a question.
There is a way.
Somebody's asking an After Effects question on a Blender site?
Yeah, they're compositing. I don't think this is the answer.
Somebody watching this 20 years from now is going to go, oh, you don't know how to do that? Okay, so just know that you can change the size of this target. And when you change the size of the target, it changes the size of the solid that it creates. Okay? With that in mind, I'm just going to create a solid in camera. I'm going to delete that camera that was already there and set my solid orientation up well in here. So I want to angle it like that, and I'm going to make it bigger. Now this isn't, I will tell you that After Effects doesn't always do this as perfect as I want it to, especially if the camera focus or the size of the lens and the relationship and all that angle of the lens and all that. Yeah, so there's a lot of opportunity depending on what you're shooting with. I mean, if you shoot it with an iPhone, then it's going to be pretty good, just because there's not much wide angle in the lens. But we can maybe move forward and zoom out. See if we can match it. I'm not sure.
That's pretty, it's probably a pretty wide angle lens.
Yeah.
So
I can,
maybe below 50.
I don't know, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
So somebody selected a bunch of points and it made a bigger target, but yours wasn't doing that earlier, so I don't know.
They don't know what they're talking about.
It's lenda.com.
Well, that tells you why.
Yeah.
All right, that's kind of close right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a barrel distortion on the lens anyways, so you want to get that right anyways.
Yeah.
Without fixing it.
You can just corner pin everything else.
I feel like I went the wrong way with my camera. So I'm gonna open up that guy.
Okay, hang on one sec. BRB.
All right.
Ooh, it's getting closer.
That's
Like,
not too bad.
everybody's going,
Oh no.
Oh, no! Split the difference.
There should be a science to this. Come on.
Right, I agree with you. I'd love for someone to.
I think
If Jason Pierce was here, he could tell us
Yeah.
exactly
Tell us
what
the
the
thing.
lens.
Cinema 4D has an automatic thing that does this. You just corner pin like a few tracking points,
Oh, really? Okay.
and then it will solve the camera for you and track the planes for you.
I don't believe
What
it.
is it?
Yeah, I don't. I have not come up with anything that does.
Because I could have sworn I tried to do something like this.
It'll create a point cloud of the track points, which will give you a visual representation.
Now it's had it imported into After Effects. I couldn't tell you, but I could have sworn I did that or saw something on that the other day.
So what I'm going to do is get this close.
Yeah.
And if I need to, I can do a mask.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So have a solid. This is going to be my island, and we'll do. Let's just go for it. We're going to try and do the whole thing. So now I need my island side here. Like this. Create a solid. Looks a little bit funky on the rotation. But we're going to be okay. When my planes start to cross, then I'll know that I've basically touched the edge of the countertop.
So something like that.
Mhm.
It has like a feature that does it for pictures. I'm not sure about video.
I think so. Okay, so a little bit of that, and we can see
Get closer.
kind of how that looks. All right, something jumped. I'm not sure what jumped. Oh, I know what happened. I changed where my camera was. So I've got to go back here and see if I a value graph, see if I really messed this thing up. There it is. All right, so these guys, do they live in the right space? All right, so just need to go turn off my graph. Take this guy back. That. This guy this way. And I'm gonna fully cover the counter. That. And I'm not gonna move my camera because that is bad. What I can do is duplicate this and call it island side. We'll call this island front. And for island side, I just need to rotate it. So I parented it to the island, and now I'm just going to rotate it on the, let's see. Woo-wee, that is a serious warp. Okay, so we'll just go 90 degrees. Move it over here. through. Not island. Maybe it's the same color, and that's why. There it is. Okay. Drop it below there. And there we're good. We're just going to move forward. Okay, so now we can go back here and say, select some points like that. And create a solid. This is going to be counter wall. Go like this. And we'll do one over here. This is going to be solid. Blackboard wall. That. We'll just put those two back here for organizational purposes. And now for my island, I'm going to let's do a little mask just to see if it helps. So I'll hit G or just pick my mask tool. Go like this. And all these things need to be 100% opaque.
Beautiful.
All right, so now the idea is to do my gradients again. John, you said, what if we did a light?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll put a light in and we'll just see what it looks like. And we'll put the light very near the camera.
Yeah, I think it ought to be like at the point of the camera lens.
And let's see what we have. We have a point light, cast shadows, and let's see if I move it in Z, what does it do?
Probably should turn off, what's it called?
Shadows.
The distance should just be able to go infinite, right?
Do want it to have, if I'm going to do this, I want it to have fall off.
Yeah, so that whatever is closest to the lens is brightest. Yeah.
We'll do no shadows, but we will do fall off. So that is not doing exactly what I think it should.
Can you current it to the camera?
Yeah, let's do the camera position one more time. Like that. So having cast shadows off doesn't work.
Probably just need to
Oh, the fall off needs
adjust
to
the
be
fall
set.
off, yeah.
Radius
Set
10.
too small.
There we go.
Ooh,
Okay.
there it goes.
So now let's see fall off distance.
in somewhere.
And
Interesting.
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 Why is it doing?
That is a great question.
Maybe you need to go to materials and make sure like reflectivity is.
So that's the counter wall. Light transmission off, except shadows, except lights.
yeah.
So if I do except lights off.
No, you don't have
Let's
shadows.
do-
It's specularity.
No, you don't have shadows on, so that light is going through the counter to the. Nothing's stopping the light from the counter
That's
to
okay.
the.
That's okay.
Oh, why is it?
Don't want
black?
Is
You
it
don't want any
specular?
shininess.
don't want
Maybe the-
specularity.
Maybe the radius of the light is clipping through that wall.
Maybe. Let's see. Let's select the light. Do light settings.
But your intensity too may
Yeah,
affect.
it's really.
Okay. So my intensity, we'll take that down to 200, and we'll set the radius. Let's see how far away the counter wall is. So
Oh, you,
11,000, almost 12,000.
you know what it is? The countertop is at a sharper angle, so it's not catching as much light.
We'll do
So that
okay.
is it.
radius.
Yeah, so this might not work.
Yeah,
After
it's
Effects
pretty
2.5 is just so.
Let's do 15,000
Robots.
on there. All right, so this is kind of interesting. The way it's falling off, the way it's reacting is not
The fall off.
is not perfect, but it's possible maybe that since we have the island like this, that we can set it to white texture or white color and get the correct fall off. Maybe my light is not white, so we'll do that. And we need to do the same thing for the island front and side. And then because of the way the counter wall and the backboard wall are working, we're just going to do accept lights off on these guys.
Oh, just set it to a fixed
Mm-hmm.
gray.
And I'll do accept light off. So putting a light in there got us most of the way there, right? And I think I do still need to adjust this guy up a little bit because I want the counter to be basically white on the front. Okay. Now this guy here is a little goofy, so we will do cast shadows off for everything. I'm just going to select that, copy it.
What if we should have done a parallel light that's at the same angle as the camera? I don't know if that would make a difference too, because what's happening with the point light is it's coning off in that direction. What we really want to get is
So let's try it.
almost like a
Yeah.
plane, you know,
Yes.
Parallel
where
light,
all the light is going in one direction.
and we'll take
Well,
that.
I mean, technically, you would want it to be. You would want it to be a point from the camera point of view. So.
Okay.
I think it's just.
Okay.
I think it's just the fault, the angle of.
You know, it kind of works.
Now it's just like solid color.
Yeah, almost a solid color there, right?
I mean, you could cheat things by changing their diffuse value.
Yeah.
Turn the diffuse down on the back wall. Turn it up on the counter inside. Yeah.
All right, so now island side looks like it is misaligned a little bit.
Probably. Not me, but you,
But
there's probably
somebody
some
else
way-
could.
There's probably some expression that would look at the angle of the plane compared to the camera
Yeah,
and
that's,
adjust the
I bet you're
diffuse.
right.
the
Okay,
diffuse.
that's interesting. We might look at that.
Yeah.
If we don't look at it today, we'll look at it another time.
That would totally do it.
So I'm going to put a black solid on the very back, and I'm going to do for counter wall. I'm going to add this gradient ramp again, and we'll go from black over here to white up here, but it will not be white. It will be like that color. Okay, so then we'll copy, paste, and make sure we'll swap those. Make sure this black touches there, like that. And just for fun, because it's so fun, I'm going to go like that. All right. Now, ladles and jelly spoons. We roughly,
That was good.
we roughly have a depth map that exists in 3D space. All right. For counter wall, need a little bit more of that right there. We need to adjust this guy just a tiny bit. So, like, speed doing this doesn't make it perfect. You can get it very close. I had at one point gotten this pretty close. I'm just tweaking this a tiny bit. Okay. So now we're going to have a big reveal here. We're going to take these guys and pre-comp them. So moving depth pre-comp, like that. And we will, I'm just going to duplicate my guy here. If you ever turn off your camera tracker or accidentally delete your camera tracker and you have to go back and track again, you probably will have problems. So I always recommend having at least one base layer that has the camera track on it. Okay. So now we'll go out here to the blur, camera lens blur, and we're going to do moving depth. Let's crank this thing up. And we'll do repeat edge pixels. Now we can try to adjust our focal point. Oh, 20 is not going to work, guys.
Is there any way to pick the gray value for the focal distance?
Not to my knowledge. I think you can in Cinema 4D. I think you can do a, this is where focus needs to be, and you can click it. But for this, I don't think you can. So what we'll do is we'll turn our blur down a tiny bit. Like that.
That whole lighting thing we just did, they took that out, or you don't even have to do anything like that in the newest version. You could just set up the walls and the camera top, and then you can natively access the depth,
Oh, the Z depth.
the Z depth
okay.
from just by applying the 3D, what effect is it? 3D channel effect.
Ah.
You can just natively pull it out now in the
I don't. We'll need to look a little bit more into that. I'm not positive on the complete total ease of use on that.
Yeah, ease of use, maybe not.
Yeah.
They say you can do it on their site.
Okay. I'll
There
agree
is
with whatever they have to say.
There is a button.
I follow the company line. All right, so really we did that in just 10 or 15 minutes or so,
Yeah, it wasn't too bad.
and it wasn't too bad. We, of course, if we knew our lens better, if we had, I don't think we'd get a smoother track than that because Jason does a pretty good job. But knowing the lens, maybe there's something to do with the size of the frame, because doing it 1920 by 1080, I don't think, no, maybe I did make sure these are both 1920 by 1080. Okay, so we're good there. But the point is, with all of this, you can create your own depth maps in After Effects if you need to, without going anywhere else, without too much trouble, I'll say. Okay.
Hey Trent,
Hey man.
the first time that I came to your meeting, you suggested that we could try to create a tornado. Do you think we could do that sometime?
Yes, I'm
At a future
continue at a future meeting. Yes, I'm continuing to work on that, and if anybody has any comments on that, I will gladly listen to you.
Oh, I'm so looking forward to that.
Okay, because just natively creating that inside After Effects is pretty difficult.
Just one of the trap code form ones, but
Yeah.
we can get it to render for like 15 frames.
Yeah, I understand that. Okay, so now we're going to take all this, put it in a folder, and not look at it for a minute. And what I want to show you now is one part of dynamic animation. Okay. I had, if we hadn't taken so long on the depth map stuff, I had something else for you. But right now, what I'm going to do is create a solid that is 200 by 200 inside my 1280 by 720. That's good. And I'm going to just lay these guys out. I'm going to duplicate and just kind of lay them out around like this. Actually, I don't need to do that. I can select them all and duplicate them like that. Okay. So what I'm going to do is have, let's say, another layer here that moves around and does something to these guys. I'm just going to fill it with a color and give it a shape. Maybe a star. Okay. So now I want my star to affect these other guys. Okay. And we're going to do that using position. And just to start off with, we'll say this star is going to affect this layer. Okay. So my star has a position, my layer has a position, and my layer also has a scale. What we're going to do is adjust the scale based on where the star is compared to where this layer is. I know I want to have a minimum distance to my layer and a maximum distance. So I'll call this min distance, And I'll duplicate my expression slider, call it max distance. And let's say this guy is at 356, and the star is at 362. So I can just go 362 minus 356. My distance is that right?
That's your y distance.
Oh yeah, I need my x distance. So 840 and 594. So 840 minus 594. Okay. We'll say 250, round it up. And I want to read the distance between this guy and this guy. So let's see if we can figure out how to do that. In order to do that, a lot of times what I'll do is just create a text layer and use that as my way to output some expression information. Okay, so I'll twirl my text down and just put an expression in here. And if I just pick that right there, I get 840. Okay, you can see that's just returning inside my text. Now let's see what happens if I do P1 equals that, just the whole position. So I get object property. Let's see what I need to change for that. So this comp layer star position.
That's because it's an array, correct?
Yeah, but it should give me the position. Maybe it's because I did that. No?
You might have to manually do one and then do the other.
All right, so maybe we'll do P1 equals that 0 and just do that. All right, so now I have position. Let's see what happens if I do, I'll just copy and paste. And are all these things labeled gray solid too? Let's call this call it box 1. We might have to relay these things out in a minute. But this is going to be P2, and it will look at box 1, box 1, like that. So now it's reading that position right there. And we'll go P2 plus P1 divided by 2. All right, so now if we move that, it's giving me a different number, but that's not, I feel like maybe that number has a lot to do with their respective positions to the 0 point on the screen. So let's see what happens if I do maybe length. Here's something you can do. You can come over here, this little arrow, and look through expression options. So there is length 0.1 and 0.2. We'll try that because I've already kind of set that up. So when those guys get close, all right, it goes to 0. All right. So now what I can do is copy that expression.
So it's measuring the distance between the two anchor points.
Correct. All right. So now I go to scale, and if you guys don't know the ease and linear expressions, I highly recommend that you research them, look them up, see all the wonderful things you can do with them. But for this, I'm going to paste there like that, and I'll call this, I'll just make another variable and call this L. Okay, so now I'm going to use linear. Linear is basically a range mapper. It'll look at L, and from my max distance to my min distance, like that. It'll range map that to, so if it's 0, then maybe my scale is 100, and if it's, so that's 0 up there, the min distance, and 250, my if I'm 250 away or further, then I'll drop down to like 30%. And then because the scale is an array, I need to go like that, and I'll just feed the same values into the X and Y so it stays the same on X and Y scale. Now if I move my star over here, it changes the scale of the box. Okay?
Very cool.
So now,
Very cool.
very cool. Now we're going to think outside the box.
Literally.
We're going to take these boxes like so and just wander them around the screen. And because the same expression is on all of them, oh, box 1, that's what we're looking for. Okay, so now what I need to do is change this expression to be my own position. Okay, so instead of box 1, I want this to be, I can just go here and do position 0. Like that, because if I don't put any leading information in front of it, it just reads the information from the layer it's on. Okay, so then I'll copy the expression, paste it to those guys, and maybe I'll get rid of that one and move these guys over. Put box 1 up here like that. And I can duplicate those. Put them down here. Duplicate again. Like that. And we're going to do a wiggle expression.
Yes.
Wiggle, and we're going to do a lot of wiggle expression. 3 and 1,000. Pew, 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 pew. All right. So maybe that's a lot. maybe that's too much. Let's drop it down to 1 like that, and let's make the comp a little bit longer so we can get some excitement here. As if it wasn't enough excitement to come to the After Effects user group. I'm adding excitement, guys.
Well, that's a given.
All right. Here we go.
Question.
Question.
Qui est-ce qui question? I saw you extended all of your
time whatever layers
Mhm.
to the comp. What's your shortcut you use for that?
All
Without
right.
highlighting them. I mean, you did highlight them.
I did highlight them. I'll show you, or I'll tell you, because you won't be able to see my hands.
It was so fast.
I'll tell you the hotkeys for this, okay? So I want one layer, if I want one layer
Mhm.
to go all the way to the end,
Mhm.
just extend the out point to the end. I pick the layer with my number pad,
Mhm.
layer 1.
Mhm.
End takes me to the end of the comp.
And like literally on your
End on the
I
keyboard.
don't have that.
Okay, you can probably do like function up or down,
Right.
function right.
Really?
Yeah.
Does the same thing?
And function left is home.
Mind blown. Mind blown.
Because it's so huge. It's big.
Mind blown.
All right.
And here's the good part.
All right, here we go.
So now, instead of doing right bracket, we're going to do option right bracket.
Mm.
Option or alt right bracket extends to the end, or extends to where the time marker is. Okay, where the playhead is.
If you hit like option home, it'll send it to the front, to frame 0.
All right. So now, if I have my time area, my work area, out point set here, and I want to jump to the end of my work area, do shift end.
So
Okay,
shift
so you would do shift
function.
function right arrow.
Oh, nice. Oh yeah, absolutely. That just sped up my work flow.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to hit end, and I'll hit the letter N to change N to change my work area out point. Then I can either hold Shift Command and select down like that. I can hit Command A to select all. Option right bracket.
I thought I had my shortcuts down.
Option right bracket. Okay, so if I want,
Wait, hold on. When you just did that, your time cursor wasn't at the end, right? Your time cursor could be anywhere.
So there it is right there.
on your timeline.
It'll extend the right option right bracket extends to where the time marker is, the playhead.
So what if my time marker is at somewhere?
If it's there, and I do.
Well, how do I get it to the?
Well, you have.
It has to be down there.
End.
Yeah, you got to go to the end.
So your time marker has to be down there for it to work. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Now,
I thought
the other option is that I want to send. If I want to send these layers relatively, the in and out point, everything just scoops down the timeline. I don't extend anything; it stays the same length. It just goes to the end. I can do option end.
Okay.
And it goes to the end, or option home, and it goes home.
So the little.
But that's
the little 20-hit combo you just did was you did like you did end option bracket whatever.
Right.
I got it.
Right bracket. Yeah, man.
Up down left right.
Command.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna make that meme.
Yeah.
So we'll do it again.
I need to make that a meme. I think I need to make that a meme. After Effects memes equals 20-hit combo.
Combo. If I could do Dance Dance Revolution with my fingers, I would destroy Dance Dance. Hotkey Revolution. Holy cow. Can somebody make a video game, please? Hotkey.
Play Guitar Hero.
All right, guys. Here's the key combination. Whoever does it first wins this round.
Yep.
This is the end of it.
All right, so I'm going option home. Hotkey King. Option home sends option home and end. Does that?
Hotkeys and sausage.
Okay.
That's what you win. That's awesome.
All right.
Yeah.
And then my brackets do the same thing.
Got it.
So the option left bracket trims to the playhead, the endpoint to the playhead.
Boom.
Okay. Now, one more time, I'll show you guys one of my new favorite hotkeys. So I'm going to make a bunch of duplicates.
I'll go to the
and I'll select
Beginning of the layer.
that layer right there, but I can't see it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't want to, I can hit my space bar and scrub like that with my hand tool. I can grab my scroll bar over here, or if I have it selected and I want to jump to it, I just hit X and it jumps to the top.
So I noticed sometimes when I do that, it'll
Do
like
that.
do something weird where it'll like when I want to move it, it'll like jump, like make jump, do something weird. Does it ever do that?
So are you
too?
using a Wacom?
Yeah.
Yes, there's a little bit of a lag with the Wacom, so I'm not even doing anything right now, and it continues to use that. If I do my hand tool,
Mm-hmm.
then it's completely responsive.
The what? What's a
That
Wacom?
is quite
This
the,
tablet.
The shortcut.
Okay.
Pin
I always
tablet.
thought it was Wacom.
Yeah,
There's
Wacom,
debate.
Wacom.
so much debate.
No, thanks guys. Those really helped me out.
Yeah.
Because I've always wondered, I'm like, how do you? I never really looked it up, but so many times a day I'm like, how do I get to?
You know,
Yeah, those are.
Yeah, it's money.
it's all big, man. Big hotkeys make you fly.
I just,
Red Bull gives you wings.
recently
Hotkeys make you
learned
fly.
I totally
Big top to
thought
window.
of that.
Shortcut.
All right, so that's the first. That's the first iteration of our. This is how you animate dynamically. Because I'm not setting keyframes, I'm only setting expressions. Okay. We'll do one more thing real quick. So this is going to be. Let's see. Scale. Dynamic scale. How about that? If you put dynamic in front of something, people love it. We'll call this dynamic time remap. Even cooler. Okay. So I'm going to delete all but this guy here. And I'm going to take the expression off of the scale, and I'm going to pre-comp this guy. This is going to be animation pre-comp. Like that, and we'll open it.
Also, I just remembered something. You know, when you do the trim layer, why does it? Is it in settings where you can like adjust it to wherever it always cuts it like one frame over? You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, when you're
And then when you zoom in, you notice it doesn't quite right where your timeline is. It's always like just a sliver.
It has
A
to
little, like,
just has to do
one
with
frame.
the frame. It's just the time. It's like a pixel of time.
the playhead is actually on the left side of the frame that you're on. So when you
Mhm.
zoom in and you can see the frame,
Yeah.
the playhead is always going to be on the left.
So there's no way to cut it right there on the playhead.
Well,
Well, yeah, you just move your playhead back,
So just,
cut it, and move your playhead forward.
Yeah.
What?
Well, no, like say I'm like
No.
transitioning from scene to scene. I always have a frame left.
Well, what you
More
do
than
is you
what I
go
would.
to the if there's a cut on in your scene,
Yeah.
you go land on the cut when the scene changes, and that's where you do your trim.
Yeah.
You nub it
You
one
do.
over.
yeah, you do it on the incoming next frame.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
To cut a layer, hit Control Shift D.
But you want to do that on the new scene, not the last frame of the outgoing scene.
Right.
Got it.
All right. So just for fun here, real quick, I'm going to make a little kind of a machine.
Ooh, machine.
Like that. And then I'll just hit Y to move my anchor point over here. Duplicate this and reverse it. Just change the color. Make it a little bit darker. Like that. And I'll just do one more little piece like that. So now I can do my rotation here. This probably could be just, you go ahead and do this in the main comp with your rotational values. I'm just going to show you the whole point of this is that you can do a time remap. Okay, so I'm going to do a negative rotation from this layer. Okay, so if I rotate this layer, these guys rotate like they're pinching. Okay,
It's a claw.
all right, so this first over here, first frame, and then I'm going to go like, I'm going to change this to duration 101, like that, and change my rotation like this. Okay, this is kind of like a Venus flytrap situation. All right, so now
Somehow
for
that
my
bugs,
star.
Somehow that bugs me.
Ah, very nice. New time, and I'm going to freeze frame so I can get my time remap. And then I will, do I still have it? Yes, I still have my expression copied. Okay. But what I'm doing is I'm doing time remap, so I only need one value. And my time remap is going to be in whole numbers. So 0 is my 0 frame, my 0 time, and 1 is 1 second. It looks like we have an issue here. Let's take this and put it like right there. All right, let's see, what do we got? Min distance is missing. Okay, sure it is. We're going to change that. Call this min distance, if I can spell it. Hey, watch this. I'm going to do Control T, and it switches those letters.
What?
Did you see that?
Really?
See what it's doing? If
It's
you're
like a normal thing for Win or for Mac.
for Mac, yep.
Okay.
Min distance and max distance. And there's 200. That. Turn that back on.
It is very good. Mixture sale
And
vector.
let's switch those. This will be 1 and 0. All right. So now my star, when I move it around,
You can't catch me.
haha,
You can't catch me.
Little does he know his life is controlled by expressions.
It's pretty funny.
I'm too fast for you.
I can never get it.
slippery slope.
Super.
All right.
Now I can.
Now wiggle.
I always wonder about like.
So-
if you don't have a tinky.
There's one more example of dynamic animating.
Not today,
So the
buddy.
next thing I'm going to show you, and again, we don't meet in November and December.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry for you guys, it's your first time. You get to take a 2-month break, watch all the other videos on the YouTube channel, and come back and join us in January. But what I'll show you in January is going to be
Dynamic.
some more dynamic animating, and I'll give you an example of that. So let's see if I can actually find this thing. Maybe I'll just open this here. And the idea is that I have done some screenshots of a web page and kind of rebuilt it inside After Effects. And I have some expressions. So this expression is on the time remap here, and it looks at a bunch of stuff. There's even some for loops in there. And I have some highlights here. So this social graphic highlight looks like that right there. And I needed to animate what looks like a screen grab of somebody surfing around the website. But instead of trying to do the screen grab and then time remap it in After Effects, and I don't know what the quality is going to be if I try to zoom in and move and all that, I wanted to make it dynamic so I didn't have to use keyframes. And you'll see here the only keyframes in this whole thing are just the position, really the position keyframes for the hand here. And if I take the hand and move it around,
Nice.
it changes.
Nice.
Okay, so it also, you see the arrow, it's kind of
yeah.
hidden. It's kind of hidden behind my arrow.
Yeah, it turns
When it-
into the hand.
It turns into the hand because of a time remap on there. Okay, so if I delete this, and we go over here to this little section, we'll look at this. Let's do a little RAM preview.
Plus, you'll find things like
So the-
social graphics and print-ready media, along with 7 other
The only thing
so
that
it's not just your son
I-
experience that consistently look
the only thing I screen grabbed is when I
or check
put
out
this
our
menu
section
up
for
over
access
here.
to our
So
top
we go over to the pick one plan,
backgrounds and menus. And brand
Over
new
here.
to our site is our pick
and
one
then I
plan,
click
which
that,
allows you
and
to
that's
unlock
a
unlimited
screen
access
grab,
to any single
and
product
I
category
select social
from
graphics, and it goes back to
Oh,
After Effects.
Plus, you'll find things like social graphics and print-ready media, along with 7.
So then if they come in and go, I just want to go down to print ready and I don't want to go back up to any of those other guys, I just cut out the position keyframes. Or they say, oh, well, I want it to take a little longer. Then I don't have to go re-keyframe where all the thing turns to the hand from an arrow and where all the highlights come up. I just set it and forget it.
Been there, done that.
It's so good, right? You know what I'm talking
Oh,
about, because you don't want to be in there for another
Yeah.
hour and a half re-keyframing everything.
Do all the animation and then go in there and just trim layers, turn highlights on and off.
Yeah. So it took me maybe an hour or so. I had to do a little research on for loops inside After Effects, in JavaScript, sorry. But once I figured it out, I was able to, hold on, let's do. So it looks here for the hand. It's a little weird sometimes. There we go. So I'm going to zoom in on this. So I look through my layers, and then I look at my time remap here, and I say, if my layer is over top of something, a layer that ends in X, then it figures out that name, and then it brings it down here and says, within that area of that particular layer, do I have an alpha channel or not? Okay, that's just the sample image thing.
Yeah.
And in order to get that alpha channel, so these are all my rollovers. So anything that has an X is a rollover layer. So After Effects, the expression reads down through all of these guys every frame, and it goes, and is this layer over one of these other layers? If it is, break out of this. I think I had to use a break somewhere in there. Break out of this and return the alpha value of that thing. Yeah, there's the break right there. Because the reason I had to use the break is because if I didn't, it would only give me the alpha values for the very last layer in the stack, depending on which that was. And so we're gonna, I think on the next After Effects meeting, we're gonna kind of break this down and see what that looks like for maybe one of your applications. Cool.
Cool.
Cool. All right, well, thank you for joining us. Again, we'll meet back again in January. In the meantime, head over to Dallas After Effects user group website. If you're not already a member, go ahead and submit to become a member, and we will. I'll post, inspiration and tips and tricks and reels and all that, as well as the next thing I think I'm going to post is a link to the YouTube page, so you can go look at all the previous movies. I did submit for a new channel, a live Dallas, actually Dallas After Effects user group channel. So it won't be under my Manners Cast YouTube anymore, I don't think. It'll be an actual, starting in January, Dallas After Effects user group YouTube channel.
Excellent.
So any thoughts, any questions?
And I would like that link.
Yeah?
And maybe comment.
Yeah, I'll make sure you get the link.
And then someone would like my comment.
Yes, I will. I will do it. And we'll look forward to seeing you guys next time. Thank you for joining us.
Dynamic, dude.